One of the great failings of psychotherapy is that in many cases the patient, even after years of treatment, winds up with little more than an explanation of their condition rather than a resolution of it. If you already listened to the installment in this series on the service effect, you may even come to the realization that some people even use their psychological diagnoses as excuses for their behavior, making such diagnoses service effects. I'm sure you've heard people say, "Sorry, I am really ADD," or "You'll have to forgive my mother, she's bipolar so she just acts that way," and other such things. TROM therapy directly addresses the postulates one makes and the postulates that have opposed him or have overwhelmed him, rather than just explaining away an unwanted condition. In other words, you don't explain away your postulates with reasons why you made them, you just handle them. I'm Alison Tandry here for another installment of the TROM Mastery audio course. If any of what I've said just went over your head, please restudy the appropriate part of your materials, or if you are a new viewer, navigate to the Start Here playlist on our channel, or begin the TROM Mastery audio playlist from the beginning and listen to it in order, to learn the fundamentals of the resolution of the mind, also known as TROM, which is a self-studied, self-applied method of resolving your mental and spiritual condition. All the materials on this channel as well as on our site bettertrom.com are 100% free. Today's audio presentation is taken from the chapter of TROM 2023 entitled Postulates and the Reasons Why. I have revised it and seamlessly woven in explanatory comments for an optimum listen-only experience. A being creates reasons why he made a postulate after, not before, he makes that postulate. First comes the desire, then comes the postulate, then come the reasons why he made that postulate. Desire, postulate, then reasons why is always the sequence. The reasons are only justifications to convince others that the postulate is reasonable. The closest you can ever come to a reason why for a postulate is that it seemed like a good idea at the time. Now this is not something dreamed up by me after a heavy night reading Alice in Wonderland. It happens to be the truth of the matter. Now it is true that a being, feeling unable to dream up convincing reasons to justify a postulate, will not make that postulate. But these are reasons for not making a postulate, not reasons for making one. Get that? He'll prevent himself with reasons not to make one, but he doesn't need any reason why in order to go ahead with it in the first place, as a being never needs a reason for making a postulate until he has made it, and only needs such to justify it to others. His postulates stem from his desires stem from his urge to be alive and in there playing the game. The being will always swear on a stack of Bibles that his reasons for making the postulate existed prior to the making of the postulate. For to admit otherwise is to open him up to the charge that he's making postulates without due reason why, and then justifying them afterwards. The only way he can defend his postulate as being reasonable is to swear that the reasons for making the postulate existed prior to the making of the postulate. Eventually, he comes to believe his own lie. If a being ever needed a reason why to make a postulate, then the first postulate ever made in the universe could never have been made, for at the time it was made no reasons why for postulates existed. That first postulate could only have been made from a desire to achieve a certain state of affairs. That is the way it was then, and that is the way it has been ever since. A person may search their mind for the reason why of some unwanted mental condition. Having found a reason why that is convincing to them, they promptly blame it for the unwanted mental condition. This is compounding the lie, and only traps them further in the blame and guilt mechanism talked about in an earlier lecture in this series, and in the whole subject of conviction and justification. The unwanted mental condition is essentially a postulate, which is held in place by the compulsive games condition with its opposition postulate. For example, a compulsion to know is not going to resolve by explaining why you want to know, or why you are so curious, nosy, and so on, but only by resolving that postulate and its opposing postulate of to not be known, and such a conflict would be addressed in level 5A of TROM, or if it's some other goal, like to eat, you would not address a compulsion to eat by explaining it away, but would be addressed at level 5B by running the To Eat Goals package. Let's say you have a compulsion to kick cats. You'll need to address this postulate to kick cats and the whole subject of cats and kicking. There is clearly a compulsive games condition here between you and cats. Ransacking your mind and assigning reasons why to your compulsion to kick cats will not help you in the slightest. The mind, then, is only resolved by addressing postulates and the subject of games, which are postulates in conflict. Addressing the reasons why you make postulates resolves nothing. Once you grasp the truth about this subject of postulates and reasons why, you will also learn to cut through the smokescreen of reasons why that others throw up to justify their postulates, and be able to see their naked desire and postulates clearly exposed. The brush salesman may give you 1,000 convincing reasons why you ought to buy his brush, but all of them come later than the fact that he desires to sell a brush to you. Some modern schools of psychotherapy are what are known as evaluative schools. The practitioner of their type of school does not search in the mind of his patient for the reasons why of the patient's difficulties, for he has already convinced himself that he knows the so-called real reason why for everyone's difficulties. This so-called therapy is purely a matter of the practitioner convincing the patient of the practitioner's beliefs. Even after the therapist has convinced the patient, he still has his unwanted condition, and also a thoroughly convincing argument as to why he has that condition. While psychotherapy explains away unwanted conditions, with TROM therapy, you simply address them and vanish them. Thanks for listening to this installment of the TROM Mastery audio course. I'm Allison Tandri. We are DIY Salvation. Don't just use your mind. Resolve it.